Welcome. Today we're going to get into something kind of deep, a really profound spiritual idea. What happens when the very thing that helps you the most in your prayer life actually starts holding you back?
So let's really dig into this question, right? We're going to pull some amazing insights from a classic text on Christian mysticism, one that basically lays out a roadmap, a journey from what you can picture in your mind's eye to a place that's way, way beyond that.
Okay, so first things first, let's set the scene. For a lot of us on a spiritual journey, the place we start is with the power of our imagination, right? The mind's eye, our ability to visualize things. So the text we're looking at has this kind of formal name for it. It's called the interior corporeal sense. I know, it sounds super academic, but don't worry, it's really just a fancy way of saying our imagination. You know, that power we have to create images and scenes inside our own head. It's like our own personal movie screen. And what's so cool is that this text lays out a clear path, like a progression. You see it here. We start with our outward senses, seeing, hearing, touching the actual world. Then we move inward, to that interior sense we just talked about, where we use our imagination to meditate. But look at that last step, the spirit. That's framed as the real destination, this direct connection with God that's beyond any picture you could ever conjure up. So how does this second step, this interior sense, actually work? Well, this is basically active meditation. It's when you visualize, say, Christ crucified, or you picture God on a throne, just radiating majesty, or maybe you think of glory as this beautiful, brilliant light. These images are so powerful, right? They help us connect on an emotional level, and that's a totally crucial starting point. But, and this is a huge but, this is where the journey takes a really interesting turn. Because that incredible tool, our imagination, the thing that got us this far, it has a limit, a hard-coded, built-in limit. I mean, think about it for a second. Even the wildest things you can imagine, they're really just remixes of stuff you've already experienced through your senses. The book gives this great example, imagining palaces of pearls and mountains of gold. I mean, it sounds epic, right? But it's just a mashup of things we already know. Palaces, pearls, mountains, gold. We're just rearranging the furniture we already have in our head.
And this is where the argument gets really solid because it's grounded right in Scripture. St. Paul says it so clearly. We shouldn't think of the divine as being like gold or silver or a sculpture or anything a person can dream up with their imagination. The whole point is that God isn't just a souped-up version of something we've already seen.
Okay, this chart really lays it all out. Look on the left. That's the absolute best stuff our minds can cook up. Palaces of pearl, resplendent light, the most beautiful forms imaginable. But then look at the right. The divine being is described as incomparable, unproportioned, dissimilar. What does that even mean? It means there's no common ground. It's like comparing a photograph of the sun to the sun itself. No matter how amazing your mental picture is, it's just not the same thing. Not even close.
All right, so what happens next? What happens when you've been using your imagination in prayer for years? And it's worked. But now, something's telling you it's time to move on? Well, you hit a wall, a spiritual plateau. And it can be super frustrating.
So what does this plateau actually feel like? The text describes something that, well, it might sound really familiar to some of you. It's that feeling, when the spiritual practice that used to fill you up now just feels empty.
Yeah, instead of that peace and connection you used to get, meditation starts to bring what the Source calls aridity. It's just dry. It's tiring. You feel restless. All that sweetness you remember is just gone. And forcing yourself to meditate feels like a chore, and you get nothing out of it.
And here's the kicker. The problem gets worse when we don't understand what's happening. Our first instinct is to just try harder, right? To double down and force those visualizations. But the text says that's like trying to make a teenager play with their toddler toys. The soul has outgrown it. It wants to move on to something new, something quieter. But we keep dragging it back to the old way of doing things, which now just feels like hard work.
So what do you do? Well, the answer is completely counterintuitive. It's not about trying harder. It's not about doing more. It's actually about doing less. It's about letting go.
And to help us get our heads around this, the Source gives us this brilliant metaphor. I love this. It says to think of your spiritual journey not as some long, flat road, but as climbing a flight of stairs.
And the logic of a staircase is simple, right? To get to the top, you have to lift your foot off the step you're on. You have to leave it behind. The quote here says it perfectly. The steps are the means to get to the goal. They're not the goal itself. So those meditation techniques that got you this far, they were absolutely essential. But you can't get to the top floor by standing on the first step forever. So where are we climbing to? It's a state the text calls quietude. And this is so important. Quietude isn't about being lazy or just spacing out. It's actually a very active kind of rest. It's this quiet, loving attention on God, and here's the key part, it happens without all the hard work of trying to create images in your mind.
So the practice itself starts to look really different. The advice is pretty simple, actually. Just rest in that quiet. Your imagination might still be firing off pictures and ideas. Just let them go. Pay them no mind. And the most important part is to be gentle with yourself. Proceed with love and trust that you're being moved by God, not just by your own mental heavy lifting. Okay, so let's talk about the destination. What's at the top of these stairs? What's it actually like when you arrive in that place of quietude?
Well, it's a huge shift in your whole posture. You go from being the actor, the one who's creating all the scenes and directing the thoughts in your prayer, to being the recipient. You're just gently and lovingly receiving what's being given to you.
This quote here just sums it up so perfectly. It's about moving with this gentleness of love, being moved more by God than by its own abilities. See? It's all about being receptive. It's about trusting that something deeper is at work, something that doesn't rely on how strong your imagination is. And this is the most crucial takeaway, I think. When you let go of your own mental creations, you're not making your prayer empty. No way. You're actually doing the opposite. You're making space for something way more direct, way more profound, a connection that isn't being filtered through the lens of your own limited imagination.
So in the end, this whole journey poses a really challenging question to each of us. It's asking us to step off the solid ground of what we know, what we can control and picture in our minds. It's asking us to let go of the very tools that have been so trustworthy for so long, so that we can embrace a mystery that's deeper, quieter, and way more transformative. The only question left is, are you ready to leave that shore?